American farmers are watching their livelihood collapse and still cheering for the guy telling us to buy beef from somewhere else. Let's talk psychology. He's not appealing to self-interest. He's triggering a trauma bond, the same pattern where people cling tighter the more they're devalued. It's the illusion of belonging after betrayal. He's mastered identity fusion, convincing followers that loyalty to him is loyalty to self or country. So even when the policies hurt them, their brain registers defiance as self-harm. He doesn't need to win every argument. He just needs to keep the bond alive. That's why you'll see people lose their farms and say, "Thank you, sir." Because in this kind of conditioning, pain feels like proof of faith.
So I live in an ultra-conservative MAGA community. I was raised to be ultra-conservative and MAGA, but our community was actually built on cattle ranchers. And yes, every single one of these cattle ranchers in my community have been diehard MAGA. So I want to read the letter that Trump wrote to them. To the cattle ranchers, who I love that I was able to hoodwink for their vote, they are too stupid to understand that the only reason that they could possibly have any success is because I, Donald J. Trump, taxed them and their consumers with the tariffs that I placed on foreign nations. In fact, if it weren't for me, they would have to go back to doing whatever it is that they were doing before the days of cattle ranching. But it would be nice if they understood that. But these cattle ranchers need to get their prices down, because the truth is, I never cared about America first or the American farmer. If you don't believe me, just look what I did to the soybean market. I just sent $40 billion to Argentina to influence their elections. So that's why you, the American farmer, cannot have health care. And to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, I read your response about how you cannot stand behind me. Well, I warned you, all you had to do was vote for me this one time, and that would be it. So thank you.
Who knew that importing beef from Argentina was going to leave American farmers and ranchers questioning Trump's loyalties? First, the tariff wars undercut American soybean farmers, and now Trump is importing beef from Argentina. They want to know what's going on here. It turns out President Trump is threading the needle. While he's making deals with Argentina to keep China out of our backyard, he also has to face the reality that beef prices have not come down, and the American consumer feels it every time they check out at the grocery store. By allowing a fraction of Argentine beef into the U.S., he's putting just enough pressure on domestic producers to keep prices in check. And that's where the tension comes in. Ranchers are frustrated because they've seen stable profits thanks to strong demand, even at all-time high prices. But Trump has to decide, does he prioritize the producers of an industry or the pocketbooks of 330 million Americans heading into the holiday season? It's a complicated issue. We can't get hysterical or treat this like betrayal, because sometimes leadership means making uncomfortable trade-offs for the betterment of all Americans, not just one segment. Maybe the real answer isn't blocking imports, but removing the red tape that drives up producers' costs so ranchers can grow their herds and compete freely. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing: affordable food, strong farms, and a stable America. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Trump told the cattle ranchers to get fucked and like it. And when they all started whining about him importing Argentine beef, let's get into it. So this account here, Merriweather Farms, they've been over on Twitter kissing Trump's ass for years. I'm going to get out of the way, pause it so you can read it all, and then I'll get my fat face back in here. We love and support you, POTUS, but your suggestion to buy beef from Argentina, blah, blah, blah. I love this part too. On top of all of this, the only chaos is coming from the Department of Agriculture. There is no true guidance, mismatching the copious amounts of photo ops. The cattle ranchers are pissed, and Trump could give a fuck less. Here's what he told the cattle ranchers after they were whining about him importing the beef. The cattle ranchers don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on the cattle coming into the United States. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. Let's see what the Cattle Ranchers Associations think about it and how well they're doing. This is a tweet from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump while he undercuts the future of family farmers and ranchers by importing Argentinian beef. It is imperative that POTUS and Secretary Collins lets markets work without interference. If the administration is truly an ally of America's cattle producers, we call on him to abandon this effort to manipulate markets and focus on these things. It don't sound like they're doing too well to me, does it? I love nothing more than when he pisses in his supporters' faces and tells them to enjoy it. He tells them they're doing great when they're not doing great. It's what he does to the entire fucking country all the time. So I fucking love it when his supporters get it thrown right in their fucking faces what is happening in this country. And then they want to whine and cry about it. Look, let me tell you something. You don't owe these people any empathy. No one who voted for Donald Trump deserves your empathy. If they're losing their farms, if they're losing their ranches, if they're losing their health care, if they're losing their food assistance, they do not deserve your empathy. They show no one else any empathy. These people, these ranchers, these farmers, none of these Trump voters gave a fuck if he was harming other people. So do not give them the empathy that they do not deserve.
Nothing says I saved American ranchers like destroying American ranchers.
So I'm very happy about that. We're going to do something very quickly and easily on beef to get it down. The ranchers understand that. They're so happy for what I've done. I saved them. I don't think you'd have any beef in this country if I didn't do that. So we're very proud of that. Yeah, Brian?
This is rich. Trump sitting there in his gold-plated room, patting himself on the back about how the ranchers are so happy, how he saved them, how he wouldn't even have beef without him. Absolutely delusional. Because while he's jerking himself off about saving ranchers, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, you know, the people who actually ranch cattle, released this. They're calling his plan the wrong approach that creates chaos and does nothing to lower grocery store prices. They're not mincing words here. They literally had to at the White House and beg him to stop screwing them over. They're asking him to let cattle markets work without interference. Translation: please stop pretending to help us while you stab us in the back. And Meriwether Farms, they called it exactly what it is: an absolute betrayal to the American cattle rancher. Not disappointing, not concerning, betrayal. So here's what actually happened. Trump's tariffs jack up beef prices. American ranchers can't compete. His solution: import cheaper beef from Argentina to undercut American ranchers he claims to love, while prices still don't drop for consumers. Everybody loses except Argentina. This is what you voted for, MAGA. This, the guy who wrapped himself in the flag and promised to protect American workers, is selling out American ranchers to cover for his own failed trade policy. And the kicker, the ranchers screaming about this, a lot of them probably voted for him twice. He does not care about you. He cares about the headline. He cares about the photo op. He cares about being able to lie to your face and say, I saved the ranchers, while they're literally behind him yelling, no, you didn't. But please, tell me again how he's the champion of the working class. I'll wait. Spoiler alert. He never was.
This is a complete betrayal of our farmers. The other day, President Trump announced that he cut a deal with Argentina that we're going to start buying their beef. And there was immediate backlash, of course, from me, but millions of others. This is going to undercut our farmers who are already struggling. And that's not very America first. Instead of saying, my bad, so sorry, you guys are right, this is what he posted. The cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. It would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. Okay, it would be very nice if President Trump actually talked to a farmer. They are not the ones who are setting the prices. It's the four big meat packers and the retail store. Cattle prices for the farmer have decreased by 35%, while retail prices have increased by 8%. Like I reported yesterday, most farmers have second or even third jobs just to get by. Farmers are not being greedy. All they're trying to do is provide for their families. Meanwhile, the government has been over-regulating that allowed these four meat packers to gain so much power. Because now small packers literally can't afford all of the regulations that they have to go through. Instead of blaming our farmers, how about President Trump start deregulating the USDA like he said he was going to? But as always, let me know your thoughts about this and make sure you're following me for more.
Yeah, he screwed the idiots then, and they still voted for him a second time.
Well, first of all, a lot of this is karma because these same white farmers, they were the ones who sued to block the long overdue help that Black farmers were supposed to get under the Biden-Harris administration. So y'all could go to hell. How about that? But last I checked, I had plenty of steaks under Joe Biden. I didn't hear the ranchers complaining about not being able to sell their beef around the country, around the world, rather. It is Donald Trump's heinous tariff policies where he has declared global economic warfare on every other economy by slapping on these arbitrary so-called reciprocal tariffs. And guess what? Other countries have economic power as well, and they told U.S. farmers, go to hell. We'll get our beef from other places. And so all of this is a crisis completely manufactured by Donald Trump. But you know what? Every MAGA supporter is completely aware that Donald Trump manufactures crisis for his own political benefit or just for shits and giggles, because there was no border crisis. There were all these crises that he ran on. They're eating the cats and the dogs, which wasn't true. And all these things that got all these people, the trans people are coming in your bathrooms. They're coming to your sports. They're going to take all your gold medals. They love to be lied to. They love fake problems. Well, you have a problem when a president who creates problems that don't actually exist, and then he creates solutions to these problems that don't actually exist that fuck up what we already got going on. And so all of this is because you have a president, to Dr. Carr's point, is mentally diminished, but is running the inmates are not supposed to run the asylum. The nurse, the patients is out, except for there is no fucking nurse because the Republican Party is completely neutered. They've abdicated their oversight role, whether it's the Supreme Court, whether it's the Congress. And so the patient is running the whole country into the ground. And unfortunately, when that patient is the most powerful person in the world, everybody suffers. But the people who are shocked by this are the main ones that thought they were going to be just living high off the hog. Well, you are dumb because, as you like to say, Roland, hashtag we tried to tell you.
Man, fuck them farmers. First it was soybean coming on here bitching and moaning, and now it's all the cattle ranchers. They're talking about Argentine beef, and why would we buy Argentina's beef? We need to sell the beef here. Dear DEER, Mr. President, why are you doing this to us? We voted for you. You know what? I have good news for the cattle ranchers, though. It may seem like a dark time, but I have good news. The silver lining is maybe at the end of this, you'll be invited to the ballroom. Maybe you'll get to go to that $250 million ballroom. Maybe, just maybe, he'll invite your manure-smelling ass to the ballroom. And then all this will be water under the bridge, and you can go kiss your daddy's ass like you have for the last decade. Because Donald Trump is for the farmers. He's for the ranchers, right? Isn't that why he gave Argentina America First? He gave Argentina $40 billion. Meanwhile, the price of beef skyrockets. Meanwhile, Argentina undercuts the price of soybeans so they can continue to sell to China. Meanwhile, China has cut off all trades for produce and agriculture with the United States. But the farmers would vote for him again in 2028. I thought farmers were supposed to know something. I thought they were supposed to be kind of smart and understand science and math and shit like that. But what I'm seeing is they're just a bunch of gullible asshats to vote for the same man who tried to bankrupt you in 2019, vote for him in 2020, and turn around and vote for him again in 2024. So I don't know what to tell you, but your sobs ain't worth a pitcher of warm piss. My give a damn is busted.
Okay, hear me out. America's ranchers were doing really well earlier this year. You know, the farmers were not doing well, but the ranchers, beef prices were high and they were doing really well. And now we have this thing where we might be importing Argentinian beef to bring down beef prices, which would not be good for American ranchers. I've been thinking about some things and I'm just curious. So if you have a government, we're in capitalism, right, where many of the CEOs and the owners of, these big corporations are involved directly in the governing of the people, as is what is happening now. how much I feel like we're like capitalistic communism, right? Because communism is defined as like an economic and political system where the means of all production, everything, are owned by the people, and it's like a classless society. I feel like when you have all of the people who own all of the companies, like putting farmers out of business, it's going to be private equity investment firms that buy up this land, right? And they're going to make money off of this land. And the same thing like ranches. When these bankruptcies happen, it's like these companies come in, and I'm like, if our government is all made up of representatives who are heavily invested in all of these corporations who own everything in America, then aren't we just kind of a communist society but still with the classes? Like what kind of society is it when you have a like hyper capitalistic society that basically the people running the government own everything, make profits off of it, and all of the people that actually do the labor and the production not only don't own anything but are driven to or can't get health care or can't put food on their table? I know it sounds weird. I've just been trying to figure out, like, I know JD Vance is like heavily invested in a farm private equity company that buys up farmland. I know that we've got Peter Thiel and Palantir involved in the government. We've got Elon Musk involved in the government. We've got all the major tech firms. Like we even like our government owns stock or shares of Nvidia now or whatever it is. I can't remember which one, but like we basically, our government is run by people who also control our entire economy, which is kind of what communism is. Yet we don't, quote unquote, reap the benefits of communism because we're capitalistic. So all the people who are doing the labor don't actually get paid or like are not, like it's not spread around equally. You know what I'm saying? Thoughts? Anybody? Please help. I've been thinking about this with the ranchers. Like when they start going out of business and private equity buys more of our farmland and ranch land and whatnot, and those private equity firms are directly involved in our government, is Donald Trump acting for the best wishes of investment firms? Because that's where all of his money comes from. It's not from his hard work. It's from sitting back and having enough money to make some investments. I don't know. Help!
Well, you've pissed off the cattle industry. You could say they've got beef with Trump. All right, folks, you see what I did there? Here's our final story of the day. Trump said the cattle ranchers who I love don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. This is all in response to Donald Trump essentially bringing the price down on cattle by introducing Argentinian beef. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, one of my favorite organizations out there, said this: America's cattlemen and women operate in one of the most competitive marketplaces in the world. U.S. cattle producers are proud to provide the safest, highest quality beef on earth. We simply ask that the government not undercut them by importing more Argentinian beef in order to manipulate prices. Cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump while he undercuts the future of family farmers and ranchers by importing Argentinian beef. It is imperative that President Trump and Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins let cattle markets work without interference. Addressing the scourge of black vultures. I have no idea what the hell that last part meant, but it sounded pretty badass. There is the National Cattlemen's Beef Association telling Trump, stand down with that Argentinian ass. By the way, don't take my word for it. Here we have a cattle farmer, again, also speaking out against the manipulation of prices by introducing Argentinian beef into our market.
Everybody's wound up today because Trump says we're going to import all this beef from Argentina. We're going to lower our beef prices because the beef's too expensive here. And I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. First of all, it's not really a new thing to import beef. We've imported beef in this country for a long time. What is new, however, is the government getting involved because of the prices and saying the beef prices are too high. We're going to make a deal. We're going to buy a bunch of beef from Argentina, and we're going to undercut the American farmers and ranchers who are finally making some decent money. And that's just, it's a socialist mindset, if you ask me. supply and demand? Where did that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there it is, folks. So you've lost the farmers, and you've officially lost the plot.
Do you think those farmers and ranchers miss Brandon? Let's go, Brandon! Do you think they miss Brandon? I bet they miss Brandon. I mean, they're driving around their Ford F-150s that they have yet to pay off because they couldn't afford them in the first place. And they have all these FJB stickers all over that truck, and now are realizing that Brandon had their backs. You know what I mean? Like, Brandon wasn't doing this, and Brandon would have bailed them out. Brandon wouldn't have demolished the White House and given $20 billion, maybe even $40 billion to Argentina, of which Argentina used that money to derail the soybean farmers and also undercut the ranchers here in the United States. Brandon wouldn't have done that. We have a New Jersey governor's race happening this year, and the Republican nominee has also tied himself very closely to Trump to, I guess, solidify the base. And every single day, a new group of people realize that they are being lied to. Every single day, a new group of people realize that they are being gaslit. It's not everybody. It's not going to be everybody all at once. And it's only going to be the people who really connect the dots that the person that they voted for is the one doing this. And so who knows? And a poll just came out from the Rutgers-Eagleton Institute of Politics, my alma mater, and it said that, 76% of the Democrats voting said that they were voting for Mikey Sherrill because of Trump's policies and wanting to protect the state of New Jersey from Donald Trump. And of course, Jack Ciattarelli's campaign has been saying for a very long time, why do we keep talking about Trump? Let's not. And I'm sure he would prefer not, because people right now are starting to miss Brandon. Just a little bit.
Picture this. You've got a president sitting in the White House right now who's already crapped all over the veterans. He's already crapping on the farmers. He's destroying the soybean market, which China was a big part of, like it or not. They definitely were. And now he's turning around and telling ranchers, cattle ranchers in particular, the only reason you're successful is because of me. My tariffs brought peace to the world and peace in the Middle East. He's talking about a ceasefire that lasted, 3 days, 4 days? There's been dozens upon dozens of people getting killed, and he's still taking credit for it. What ceasefire? I don't see a ceasefire in place. Let's go back to the cattle rancher, though. These guys have worked their whole lives. They're generational farms, they're generational ranches, and he's taking credit for any type of success they have. It's only because of him and his tariffs that have saved them. Yeah, that's right. You don't know what the hell you're doing because you've only done this for, 40, 50 years, and you did it after your father and after your grandfather. Generational farms, generational ranches. And he's sitting in the White House behind the Resolute desk inside the Oval Office taking credit for your work. And you know what the saddest part is? Now, I hate to say this, but you voted for him. Every one of you stood up there and said, but you told us you loved us. Now we need to see the fruits of your love. Well, you're saying that now, but you weren't saying that last year around this time, were you? Everybody kept listening to Donald Trump talk about how Joe Biden's ruined the economy, destroyed the economy. You better go back and start looking at the numbers again, because if it wasn't for Joe Biden, the soybean market would have still been shit after Trump's first term in office. Because they were during his first term, if you recall, he had to bail out the farmers to the tune of $23 billion, billion with a B. Now they're looking at $15 billion, and the number keeps going up and up. And he's going to take credit for being able to bail you out. He still doesn't understand that these tariffs get passed along to us, the consumer. And there's a lot of people out on the MAGA side saying, no, that's not true. I just saw messages about it the other day. China pays those. Well, why would China pay an import tariff? The importer in this country imports products. They pay the import tariff. They pass it along to the wholesaler, who passes along to the retailer. Do you think he's going to eat that cost? They might absorb a little bit of it. They can for a while. The bigger box store companies can. But the mom and pop shops that count on these imports, they're not going to make it. They're already starting to close down. We've got farmers around here. They're already talking about selling their land because they can't afford to. They can't afford to even just keep their beans in storage. They have to sell their product to get ready for the next season. And he's taking credit for all of this. Well, he better take credit for it because he's ruining people's lives right now. Well, he's trying to take credit for telling you that you were never a success. You were never successful until I came along. What does he know about farming? What does he know about ranching? He didn't even know the word grocery still existed. People go to grocery stores every day. And he thinks he came up with a new word? That's a special kind of stupid.